Hey, yo, everyone, P-Mail Bacon back here, and I just wanted to make a quick video talking about my first 20 plus hours or so of Path of Exile 2. I've spent most of my weekend playing the new game. A lot of excitement and hype around it, a lot of discussion, interesting discourse online about how it stacks up against Path of Exile 1. Of course, the big one, Diablo 4. I do think I want to make a video that goes a bit more into talking a bit about this game versus Diablo 4. However, I'm gonna save that conversation. I'm not personally ready to get there yet. I would like to be further into the game before I go down that road. I feel like I need to have a good idea of what the end game's like. I know when I played Diablo 4, I also enjoyed my first 20 or 30 hours with Diablo 4. And then my opinion changed pretty drastically after that. And it's been interesting to watch the development of that game over time. So conversation for a different topic. I kind of just wanted to give you the brass tacks of what my experience has been thus far. I've spent most of my time playing as the witch. I think I'm a level 27, I think, as the witch right now, something like that. I am in Act 2. Pretty close to the end of Act 2, or probably about 3/4 of the way through that. I've also I've been playing the mercenary, so I'm a level 10 mercenary as well. Still figuring that class out a bit, and we'll see how that goes. I don't know if I'll stick with that in the long run or not. I guess we'll see. So. Right off the bat, I will say that, right from day one, there was some launch issues and stuff like that. Nothing major. It wasn't too bad. There were a couple hours on getting into the servers and logging into the game and all that stuff. Wasn't really a big deal. Nothing that you can't expect there. However, I did have some performance issues. This is recorded video from my gameplay. You might notice there is some little bits of lag. Had some frame drops. I don't have the best computer in the world, but I have a pretty decent computer. I don't have issues running that many games. This game is in early access, so don't be stressed out about that or anything like that. I wouldn't say that it, from a performance perspective, honestly performed significantly worse than even Diablo 4 does, which is a formally officially launched product. That game has tons of rubber banding and all sorts of weird little glitches and stuff like that, especially when it launched. So nothing crazy like that in terms of an ARPG or anything. I would definitely say, unless you are running a literal tin can for your computer, I probably wouldn't be too stressed about the performance issues. I expect that stuff will be ironed out over time. If you have a really good rig, you're probably not going to run into any major issues. Primarily the big ones, though. Yeah, I had some frame drops, a little like some lag. I also, when I was going from one area to another area and it was loading, it would cause like my stream to kind of lag, or at least the video on my stream to lag and stuff like that. I had some weird visual glitches where I'd go into town and the same thing kept happening, and it was only on my witch character for some reason, and I don't know what's causing that, but for some reason, only on when I'm playing the witch specifically, when I went into town, for some reason, I'd get these gray boxes that would kind of pop up around just all over the screen. Just for like a second, it would like flash on and then disappear, so that was very strange. When I started playing Mercenary, didn't have any of those problems at all. Playing Mercenary was pretty smooth. And then the other issue that I've been having is I just can't pick up items when I'm playing with mouse and keyboard, which is very weird. Like I can pick up items, but there's a major delay in me being able to actually pick up the item and watch it go into my inventory. So that's very strange. I'm not sure what's causing that. And again, it only happens on my witch. As soon as I switched over to Mercenary, I was picking up items, no problem. I also tried to play with controller today. No issues there at all. I was picking up items with the controller, no issues. So I will say, controller play pretty slick. So if you are wondering, if you are playing this on PC and you're like, okay, is this really a keyboard mouse game? Am I going to enjoy this with a controller? Diablo, that's one thing you got to say. Diablo does a really good job at implementing using a controller for these games. I would say this game does a pretty damn good job on it. I think there's probably a few things, quality of life things they could do. Like my town portal wasn't equipped to my hotbar menu for some reason. I had to figure out how to add that on, and it was easy, but it wasn't intuitive to figure that out. So I had to mess around with that for a few minutes to get that going, and it was kind of frustrating, to be honest with you. But anyways, not a big deal. Once you get everything up and running on your controller, it does run quite well. So I would say, if controller play is something that interests you, definitely don't let that hold you back. Check that out for sure. Right off the rip here, I will say, so I went with WASD movement. I did not go with the traditional mouse clicking for movement, which I've never played an ARPG that I can think of with WASD. I don't believe I've ever done that before. And it felt really great. The movement in this game is very strong. That's how I feel about it. I feel like it might be a little slow and clunky right now. I do feel like this game is quite difficult. So that's probably the biggest discussion that you're going to see people talking about right now is how difficult the game is. You gotta actually pay attention to what enemies are doing. You have to dodge attacks, bosses in particular. I've struggled with some of the major bosses. Even in Act 1, there's some pretty tough bosses. So I would just say be prepared for that, and you do have to use your mobility and the movement the game gives you to the best of your advantage. Like I say, I felt maybe a little slow and clunky. I feel like they could pick up the speed of it a bit better so that it was just like more fluid and stuff. Part of that could have been some of the lag and stuff again I was having. There's definitely some server lag as well. I just noticed like when I went into town, like things would just slow down a bit and stuff like that. It would get a little chunky that way. So maybe that will improve as server stability improves over time as well. But yeah, you really got to use your mobility to your advantage. So that would bring me to the biggest thing here is difficulty is going to be a big topic of conversation with this game. And I think, it's already, we can see it's going to split the community. Now, this is really my first true blue Path of Exile game. I am a Diablo guy, first and foremost. I've been playing Diablo since Diablo 1. And this is certainly, obviously, inspired by Diablo, but this is a very, very different game than Diablo. It's not going to be like Path of Exile 1. So if you're a Diablo person, or from what I understand, if you're a Path of Exile 1 person, this is going to be a very different experience for you. I played Path of Exile 1 for about 10 hours, so I have, very minimal experience with it, not enough to speak to it directly, but I have an idea of how it felt and stuff of what it was like to play that game, and it was closer to a Diablo game. This obviously takes that same premise where it's an isometric view or overhead view, third person action RPG. You're fighting large mobs of creatures and stuff. You're leveling your character, equipping your skills. Like it's got all the basic fundamentals there, but like it's just a much more slowed down version of that. The enemies hit really hard. It takes a while to level up. Like it's in a weird kind of way. Like it's almost closer to like a what the heck was that? The MMO there. Like it kind of reminds me of that one particular MMO. Oh, geez, I can't remember the name of it right now. The Amazon Lost Ark. That's the one. Geez, okay. Lost Ark. If you've played Lost Ark, there's almost a little bit of that vibe here where you gotta dodge and move out of the way of enemies and stuff like that. So it feels a lot closer to something like that in terms of movement, but it's better. It's way better than Lost Ark in terms of movement. So I was quite impressed with the movement right off the bat. It felt quite good, and I really enjoyed it. But yeah, you're going to be really challenged here. I got super stuck on some bosses, especially in Act 1. Act 2 is causing me just as many headaches already, to be honest with you. And the final boss in Act 1 is... it depends on your build, because I was Witch and I was a summoner. So you can see here, I got my minions and stuff like that. Feels like the summoner build early on is difficult thing to manage, just because your minions aren't going to be super strong at that point. But I watched my buddy who was playing Ranger. He was going for a lightning build, and I watched him fight the boss, and he did die once just because of one dumb mistake that he made, but he did incredible amounts of DPS to that boss, and he had the mobility to dodge it and stuff appropriately, whereas I didn't feel like I did. So that could be part of my issue too. Playing the Witch, my mobility is more restricted compared to a fast dex type character like the Ranger. So if you're really wanting to move around really quick and, dodge roll and stuff like that, do huge amounts of DPS early game, like Ranger does seem like a good option. I don't know. Don't quote me on that. But just watching my friend play it and doing a completely different build than me, he was able to get through it very quickly. It was like a very different experience for him than what I've gone through so far. I will say playing Witch, I was able to clean up mobs and stuff like that fairly easily. My pain point has been with the bosses. And I mean, it's a lot of the bosses have taken me several attempts to get through. You have to learn their patterns. You have to adjust and adapt to their attacks and go in with like a game plan and be prepared. And, as you might have seen, there was some reviews that compared it to something like the Dark Souls of ARPGs. I know it's a ridiculous thing to say at this point, or some meme, but there is that energy here. There is absolutely like that Dark Souls, Elden Ring energy here a little bit. There's some very obvious influences. There's a boss I fought today that I was like, man, this is literally looks exactly like a particular boss out of Dark Souls 3. So like, it's not a joke. There's actually a legitimate comparison to be made. For me, the way I'm looking at it, it's like, in a lot of ways, it's a combination of like Diablo 2 and like a Dark Souls game in some ways. This is going to feel closer to Diablo 2 in a big way than it is to Diablo 3 if you're or Diablo 3 or 4 if you're a big Diablo person. So rest easy knowing that this game is definitely more complex. Like I say, more slow paced. That your actions that you take, your moves matter. Where you're putting your stats matter. The class fantasy is much more well realized here. You don't feel like you're just a mob crunching machine 100% of the time. You're, you have to be able to use your class's advantages to the best of your ability, and you're going to have some clear moments where your advantages are working for you, and moments where they're working against you. So just be aware of that. This is probably not going to be the best game for a person who is brand new to this genre. I think it's like if you played these games before, or maybe you're just comfortable with RPGs, action RPGs in general, you'll probably be fine. I don't think it's that bad. I think it's relatively intuitive. You might have to look up some things about some of the game systems and stuff like that. But generally speaking, I don't find I didn't find like I was overwhelmed or anything like that, but it's just kind of hard. It's gonna it is gonna kick your butt at moments, and you have to be prepared for that. And it is not going to feel like a Diablo 3 or 4. Again, I don't know Path of Exile well enough to say if it's like that or not, but there certainly seems to be a portion of the community, especially people who enjoyed Path of Exile 1, who are kind of unhappy about the difficulty. I can't really speak to that. I have no real understanding of Path of Exile or no attachment to that game. I can only compare it to Diablo, and this does not feel like Diablo. This is going to beat you up a lot more than a traditional Diablo game, or at least Diablo 3 and 4. If you go back and play Diablo 2 also can really have its moments where you might struggle. That's why people like that game, because the world does feel dangerous. It does feel like you're kind of walking on thin ice at a lot of moments. You do have to kind of stand back and reassess the situations you're in a lot of the time, consider adjusting your build, go back and maybe do some grinding, some leveling up, getting better gear. Like there is that vibe here. The other big thing that I really like, and again, this is going to be like a contentious thing, there's not that much loot that drops in this game. You're gonna get a scarce number of items. A lot of them are going to be like magic items. They're not going to be like rares or legendaries. And I really, really like that. I don't want the loot farm, like especially after playing Diablo 4 and you're just inundated constantly with items. This, if you get a good item, like it feels great. Every time you get a yellow drop, which again, not very often, you're picking that up and you're looking at it and you're going to try to think of like, how can I make this yellow item work for me? And you're going to really hope that that's going to be like a good item and stuff. It does feel like the drops are just yeah, far more valuable. Gold isn't really a thing here. I'm assuming late game it will be. You need your gold to respec your passive abilities, which is, from what I understand, can be relatively expensive if you want to respec late game. So, just try to make the best decisions you can. I'm just playing blind. I mean, nobody's got the metagame figured out or anything like that at this point. I said I would say don't worry about it. Like, I've been making my way through the game and I'm doing okay. Just making it up as we go. Yeah, okay. Eventually, I'm going to have to look at a build guide or something like that to optimize for late game difficulties and stuff. But where I'm at right now, I'm just making it up on the fly. It really hasn't been that big of an issue at all. So I wouldn't worry about that. I would also say the other thing I want to add on, this game is lengthy, like it's beefy, and I don't know if that it's because there's any more content than like a typical what you would expect from like Diablo or something like that. But like I say, I'm 20 plus hours. I'm not even done Act 2 yet. Although that does include playing a good amount of Mercenary as well. So add that in there. But still, I probably have at least, I don't know, 13 to 15 hours, let's say, on my Witch, something like that. And I'm not done Act 2. And there could be a couple of reasons for that. It's just, again, the gameplay is slower. The bosses will kill you. You will have to retry them unless you just happen to have a really cracked build or you're really good at these games or something like that. But I think the average person, you're going to run into a wall probably a few times, several times, and you're going to have to retry some of the bosses and, like I say, adapt and figure things out. And it's taking me like a good amount of time to get through these acts. And it's only in early access, so there's only 3 acts out right now. There's 6 classes. I feel like I'm probably going to wrap up Act 3 maybe around like, I don't know, the 35-hour, 40-hour mark. So I'm going to have like 40 hours probably close to before I'm actually finished with like what's available in the campaign. That doesn't include endgame or anything like that. So for me, I've already got my money's worth. I think if you are really interested in this game and you're excited about it, I would say it's totally worth it to spend the $30 on the early access. For me, it was totally worth it. If money's not a problem for you and you're not weighing it against buying another game or something like that, and you're really into ARPGs, I would say go for it. Like, you got nothing to lose here. This game has just so much potential. It's already really good. And there's a lot of things that I can just see like it could be so much better in a lot of ways, but it's already just feels like it's on such a strong footing. There's so much interest in this game, and I feel like this game is going to be doing well for a long time if it sticks to its vision. That's the biggest thing I would say. You're going to have some people who are going to complain. They're going to want the game to be made easier. They are going to want the devs to make gear more or loot drop more often and get more rares. Like, I think that'd be a huge mistake. I think they should kind of maintain where they're at here, to be honest with you. Like, this generally to me feels really good. Like, everything feels really earned in this game. Yeah, there's probably some balancing and tuning they can do on obviously classes and enemies and bosses and stuff. That's fine. But I think they have a vision with this game. I think that vision is very strong. I think it's an evolution of the ARPG genre in a lot of ways, especially in just how you're interacting with the world, how the movement feels. Like I say, how important just finding like a decent item is. And it feels like it's taking all the lessons learned from the most important games over the last 10 years and kind of trying to implement them in a meaningful way. And did it hit the nail on the head with every single stroke? Not necessarily, but it's overall, considering, again, we're only in early access, the game's not actually out, I think it's off to an incredibly strong start. I'm very happy with my experience so far, and I'm just excited to kind of see what the future brings. So I'm very positive. I'm very optimistic about this game. I can't wait to play more. I can't wait to see what kind of future content comes out for it. I can't wait to see them like just clean things up, like the performance and some of the ways we might, interact with the loot and skills and all that kind of stuff. So I think, we're off to a really great start here. And I do want, like I said, I do want to talk a bit more, especially in comparison to Diablo 4. I have a lot to say about that comparison, and but I don't feel prepared to get into that topic quite yet because I need to play the game a bit longer, have a better better understanding of the end game and stuff like that. So I do plan to do that, but it might be a while before I have that video out. But yeah, I do want to talk about this game more, and I hope you're interested in it. Let me know what your experience is. I'm really curious. I think people are going to have a mixed experience to this depending on your, what's the term for it? Your kind of how open you are to learning, how much you enjoy like being challenged in a game. Are you okay with dying several times to a boss? And your ability to adapt and overcome with those challenges. And if you're not into that, hey, look, I totally understand that. Not Dark Souls and Elden Ring and stuff are not games for everybody. You know, there's always going to be people who don't enjoy those games, no matter how popular they've gotten. And I totally get that because I play a lot of chill games too. And sometimes I just like to turn off my brain and chill and not be challenged. This game is not going to quite provide that for you, probably in a lot of ways, to be completely honest, until maybe at some point you get to the end game and you figure out like, you know, the perfect build and you're just crushing. I'm sure you'll hit that point as well at some point. But if you're jumping in like me and you're relatively new to PoE, or maybe this is your first PoE game, I think the average person is going to find a good amount of challenge here. And I would just say go in with the right mindset if you're going to check this out. So anyway, thanks for watching. And yeah, leave a comment. Let me know how your experience has been so far.